One of the things it seems people overlook in the act of creation, certainly content creation, is that fine line between creating for creation's sake and creating because you have something to create or to say or to share. It's been a few weeks since I made my last video, and I've recorded a couple since which haven't made it to be shared, primarily because I felt like I was just creating for the sake of it. And that seems to me why so many people get burned out. They lose the magic or the joy of creation because they're not doing it for themselves anymore. And if you're not doing it for yourself, then what are you doing it for? What is it that you're seeking? And it's okay, right? It's okay to give yourself permission to not do the thing that you love outwardly, because you're going to continue doing it inwardly. And if you completely lose the passion for it, then that's also okay, because it means that something else is going to arise. And something that's been evolving for me slowly over many years, a bit more intensely in recent months, is the idea of taking ownership of one's life, taking ownership of my life. Most of us are brought into the world with this idea that circumstances are out of our control, the way that we feel is out of our control, the things that we think are out of our control, and basically most of life is just something that's happening to us, and we're kind of an unconscious participant or an unwilling participant. And that for the most part the best that we can hope for is a stroke of luck or a better coping mechanism. I had those two options presented to me very early on in life. Didn't really feel a great deal of hope for much improvement. I mean, if you're told that the best you can hope for is just a way to more comfortably manage your challenges, it's not really setting you up for a life of joy, is it? Let's face it. And as I've come to understand it, taking responsibility for my life doesn't mean taking responsibility for all of life. It means taking responsibility for the individualized version of life known in this moment as John. And rather than being disempowering, rather than forcing me to look at my circumstances or content my mind through a more critical lens, and arriving at the conclusion that I'm broken and I need lots of fixing, it's empowered me to make the changes I need to make, or want to make, let's say, to move in the direction of my choosing. And at first, the idea of doing that is in equal measure scary and unfamiliar. It's scary because mind says, well, what if it's not true? What if something happens that's out of your control, or something bad happens, or people say this about you, or this doesn't work out? And it's unfamiliar because it's not something most of us ever try. And that's precisely the point. If we don't try things which are a bit scary or are a bit unfamiliar, then we risk never really understanding our capacity. And as I've said before, our capacity is infinite. There is no limitation to the things that we can create or experience or enjoy or change, apart from those which are self-imposed. This is the point where I realise maybe a few words on that wall to blur out. Taking ownership also doesn't mean blaming yourself for everything that goes wrong in your life. After all, wrong is simply an interpretation. In truth, nothing is wrong or right. Things just are the way they are. And it's nice. It's nice to have a sense of ownership for your life, because who is anybody else to tell you where you should or shouldn't be going? Who is anybody else to tell you what you can and can't do? And if those people say things and you happen to believe them, the belief is yours. So by default, you always have the power to change what you believe to be true, to change what you think about what you're capable of or not. And when the belief changes, when the idea of what you can do changes, then the things that you do naturally will change as a result of that. The way it seems for most of us is that we have this idea we have to try really hard to prove to ourselves and to others that we're worthy of the title of the thing that we seek. And only after some long and arduous period of practice or struggle or hardship are we finally worthy of the title, credibility, or the outcome. The thing is, no one really tells us what the measure of success is. It's completely determined by us. So, again, it's just another demonstration that power is in your hands, in our hands. And there's a million and one arguments that every single one of us can think of as to why this isn't possible. And all of those arguments, they're not truths, right? They're just reflections of what we already believe to be true. Symptoms of the same voice that says you can't do this, manifesting in a multitude of ways, saying, well, you shouldn't try this. He's not going to approve of you, or she's not going to like that, so don't bother. And that's why most of us daren't try. And that's where the fear is born. The fear is born from the idea that we are in some way limited and incapable. And if we want something but we can't have it, we don't have the skills, or we don't appear to have the skills or the confidence or the financial backing or family, then that means in some way it's unavailable to us. The path towards the things that we want isn't a linear path. It doesn't unfold the same way for every single one. We go around looking for a one-way guaranteed ticket to the things that we want, believing that buying someone else's course, following someone else's steps is going to get us there, and then feeling depleted, disappointed in ourselves when it doesn't work. And the only thing that's going to help us arrive at the destination we want is to know what the destination looks like. How we get there, it's not for us to worry about. If you set your sat-nav in your car to get you to a particular destination, then as far as you're concerned, you're going to get there. You have the confidence that it's going to take you there. Even if there's an accident or a diversion or a closure of a road or traffic, it will just adjust accordingly. But because we can't see the mechanism in action for life, we don't trust it. We don't give things space to take different shapes and forms. We don't trust that the thing which appears as a setback now is actually a door opening for us to take us closer to the thing that we wanted. All the judgments that we have towards these kinds of circumstances, we close all of the doors of possibility because we're so fixed upon an idea that things have to look a particular way, otherwise they're wrong. Who benefits from that idea? I'm guessing it's not you, certainly not me. This is where the ownership part has its value, is when we each realise that we have the ability to shape our own thinking. So desire. Morning. Hello. Hello. We're free to experience life in any number of ways. There's no set way. No one says because this is happening you have to suffer or you have to be sad. But also no one says because this is happening you should be happy. I'm conscious that there are people probably in your lives who may suggest that those things are the case, but again, these assumptions are based on an understanding of the world that supposes everything that happens to us is completely unrelated, that we are in some way separate from every other form of life, and that we have no influence or control over any of it. And of course, that's just not true. And you're free to believe otherwise, but it comes back to the notion of we see what we believe. And the old saying comes to mind, seeing is believing. But actually it's the other way around. Believing is seeing. If you believe the world is against you, that will be your experience. If you believe that everything is conspiring in your favour, that will be your experience. If you're somewhere between the two, then your experience will fluctuate and appear to be unstable. Regardless of the experience you're having, it's valid. Regardless of the colour palette that life seems to be painted in right now, it's valid. Might not be very nice, or comfortable, or familiar, but it's valid because it's your creation. And because it's your creation, it's something that you have the power to shape, to recreate. And if you like what you're creating, excellent. If you don't, it's within your capacity to change it. And know that you don't have to know how. Because that question too will find its answer on the path of resolving the desire to change. And that's the desire to change because it's each and every one of your birthrights to change. It's your nature as a creator. It's not change because there is some moment other than this one which will be more complete. It's not because this moment is in some way lacking or because you are in some way lacking in this moment, so please be mindful of this. It's changing because we recognize that change is the nature of all things. Changing because we recognize that we all have the capacity to change how we perceive the world that we're creating, how we experience the world that we're inhabiting. If you're in a position right now where life doesn't seem to be working favourably for you, cast an eye upon the words you speak to yourself in silence. Phrases that you use habitually, whether you realize it or not. The words that you speak when you look at yourself in the mirror. Because these are the things which are painting the picture of life that you're living in. Embracing an openness to change doesn't mean you have to, or that you should. It just means that you can. I think for most of us, just knowing that we can is enough. Knowing that we can change, knowing that we can take responsibility for our lives in an empowered, loving and understanding way, without trying to dominate people, take what we think is rightfully ours at someone else's expense. Taking responsibility for our lives in a harmonious way, because the possibility exists, opens the door to the possibility of discovering how. And I could spend great length explaining to you how it's happened for me. And you could go to great lengths to try and repeat those steps, but you would have completely different results because you're not me, and I'm not you, and my path is not meant for you, nor is your path meant for me. We may converge for periods of time, we may never converge. The truth is deeper than appearance. Appearance just reflects our version of truth, your version of truth, based on how you perceive the world, how you perceive yourself, rightly or wrongly, whether that's in a way that benefits you and other people or not. But it can change. And that doesn't mean people who have this understanding, people who understand that they are creators of their life experience, that they can influence their lives significantly more than anyone ever told them. People like this don't absolve themselves of hardship by having that perspective. Hardship is just perceived differently. If I know where I'm going, then I know that every turn, every juncture, every conversation, every book or video, every word or phrase spoken to me or spoken by me is supporting me in moving in that direction. And so, in isolation, no event looks significantly bad enough to warrant me losing sight of where I'm going, or losing sight of the confidence I have, or the knowledge I have in my ability to get there, irrespective of whether or not in this moment I know how. Simply just the knowing that I can, by focusing on desirable feeling states, by focusing on calling into mind thoughts which feel good, paying less attention to those which don't feel so good, then the inner landscape shifts. And as the inner landscape shifts, so the outer landscape shifts too. Often in ways which don't quite make sense to me in the moment, sometimes in ways which are completely unexpected. It's not my place to dwell on them, to force them into a shape which they're not meant to fit into. I'd love to offer you some steps that you can take when you are at the crossroads of choice, physically and metaphorically. The steps aren't necessarily physical steps, and ultimately, as I say, if you know where you're going, every path has the capacity to take you there, if you trust that it can. And that's where most of us fall down, is that we don't trust in life. We don't trust in ourselves. We seek to outsource our trust to others, to seek the validation of others that we're doing the right things, or that we're working hard enough, moving in the right direction. And that's not something that anybody else has the capacity or the right to tell us. The right direction for you is the one you choose and stick to. And have the courage to stand behind, even if things do feel hard, do appear to be challenging. And there will be moments when you come up against your old ways of seeing. And a passing remark or outcome may trigger that way of seeing again. Perhaps even more so as you come to the end of taking such ways of seeing the world as truth. But when such things arise, equally you have the capacity to let them be there. In the same way that we can let these leaves lay on the ground without the need to tidy them up. Everything has its place. And anyone that tells you otherwise is either trying to sell you something or convince you that you're wrong. And as soon as you stop listening to yourself and start listening to the ways and words of others, and letting them dictate what direction you move in, then you're no longer in charge of your life. You're no longer owning your life or responsible for your life. Someone else is. And I know that feels comfortable sometimes, because if something goes wrong then you can point the finger, but does that really feel good? Would it not make more sense to try something for yourself, to see if it works, to learn from the experience, if you have to take a small step to begin with? Then the data is yours, the learning is yours, the realizations are yours, and you're free to share them with other people, just as I am. Again, there are only points of data. I can't show you the way, but I can only tell you that there is one. And if you'd like some help finding it, then these videos may be of further value to you going forwards. I suspect if you've watched this far, then that may very much be the case. So I'd encourage you to join me for the next instalment.